video, so I can link it in the show notes for the listeners. But I was watching this video and I found it very interesting as an illustration of actually how our human brains work and how conditioning can be illustrated in this very silly example. So he was explaining that if you are using AI, because if you don't know this, AI is essentially a replication of human cognition. It's a process in the human brain where the human brain creates neural pathways, it like connects things, it analyzes things. It's basically just a replication of something that exists inside of us, humans. So he was explaining that if you ask AI to give you a picture of a watch, and if it's a time where the minute and the hour hand are a little too close, because its processing is not absolutely perfect right now, it will automatically just give you the clock, a picture of a clock that illustrates 10 after 10. So 10, 10. And he was saying that it's because all the images of watches on the internet where people are selling watches, that is the most it's like the most, what's the word I'm looking for, like it just looks the best in the photos of a watch that you're selling. So there is so many images of watches that say 10 10 that the AI gets confused and it can't give you an image with the hour and minute hand like too close together. Just get like the wires get crossed or something. And I was just cackling laughing because we do this. We have this conditioning of, whether it's repetition or it can be traumatic experiences or it can be, repetitive thoughts that we have about ourselves or experiences that really left an impression, like all these things that create conditioning. We have this experience of not being able to generate an image that isn't 10 after 10. And when we get into these situations, we can be in an experience where someone's like, no, it's noon. And we're like, no, 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 no. The clock can only say 10 after 10. I don't know what you're talking about. It can't say noon. And I think the idea behind deconditioning is to, in every one of those moments where we are absolutely convinced that the clock must say 10 after 10, like taking a breath and realizing like actually the clock can say anytime at any time. And I just found it so interesting that this thing is illustrating so clearly something that's happening inside of us every single day.
That is so fascinating because it makes me think, firstly, it's a brilliant illustration of it, but it makes me think about how much we need to be responsible for what we take in, because the more evidence of 10 out of 10 it has, the more the cognition is going to think that that's the thing to do, like the go-to. And I've really been feeling so much recently that I think a lot of us are afraid of, how do I put this, being silent, saying nothing, not looking busy, not looking as if we're being slow or left behind or just boring by just like sitting and staring at a wall. But it's not only the power of sitting and staring at the wall, what that can do for you now as this new paradigm comes in, which we talk about in the workshops in the app, but it's also that you are not cross-defying. It's a moment that you're not validating old conditioning, because collective conditioning, which is what we see in the world outside of us, is simply just the average of all the conditioning that all of us are holding. And so if you want to change your conditioning, you have to stay untethered to a framework that essentially is invested in keeping you in that old framework. And it's keeping on reconfirming to you that that's the truth of life. And I think what's going to happen so much more, we're going to be at this interesting place because yes, everyone is going to become a better energy reader, which I also talk about in the workshops. Everybody is going to be able to not only feel energy, which we kind of do already, but be more aware of exactly what we're feeling and have our own like very specific process of how we kind of pass out all the different energy layers that we're picking up in someone's energy, someone's aura, someone's product. the sequencing of events and things like that. But yes, everyone is an energy reader, but also everyone is also filtering that energy read through their own conditioning filter. So even if you and I are kind of like clocking something or someone kind of on the same page, the more quote unquote correct read is going to usually be the person who has the least amount of conditioning around that specific topic, or that doesn't trigger some of their like big deep wounds or their big deep conditioning, or disagree with their ego, right? Like, oh, I can't possibly, I'm getting this energy read that this person is blue, but I think that in order for them to be blue, that means I have to be pink, and I must be pink to be valid. And so if they're saying it's blue, I've got to completely invalidate that, because that must mean I must be blue. So I think this is such a good topic to bring up now, because as the universe is dialing up our ability to read energy and become more aware of our own process of reading energy, we also need to become like almost painfully clear of how many lenses that we do have. And I was talking to my sister about this today, because we were talking about someone else who we, care very much about. And we were saying that, I was saying, oh, I really hope that life doesn't show him that same painful lesson again, because we can see that there's a potential for it to come back down the track. And we started talking about the key being, when you want to grow, if it comes down to one thing, and there's a section in the app called How to Grow where we lay this out, is that you have to be able to say anything about yourself to yourself and be okay with it. Because if you can't, with levity, just be very light and gracious to yourself about basically telling the truth of what your ego does, even if it's ugly, you can't overcome it. And so what happens to so many of us is that we want to grow, we want to become spiritually gifted and in our purpose and live our dream life. And so we kind of almost over index on all the other things that are a part of that puzzle, where it's like going to healers, learning modality, reading, watching podcasts, like all this kind of thing. But ultimately, it doesn't matter how much you could be doing that 100 hours a day and doing every single one. You could have a team of 100 people helping you do all of that. You could have AI, and all the power of AI helps specifically just to task you with teaching you everything about spirituality. But where we get the reward is when we show the universe with our actions that we are transforming and facing and up leveling physically in terms of the choices that we make in our lives, because that's the thing that cues the universe to then start getting behind you and send you the invisible mystical forces that actually change your reality. Like, we don't change our reality, we just turn on the forces that are kind of swirling around us, waiting to help us all the time. But if we're signaling to the universe, I'm reading all the books and I'm hoping that's going to be my way out, or I'm saying all the right things, or I'm going to all the spiritual events, but I still can't get over the hump of face something about you that you don't even take personally. It's something that you're coming here to heal. It's something that you're coming here to learn compassion in. It's something that you're coming here to love about yourself and embrace about yourself, so that you can learn how to not only have love for yourself, and I don't mean like adore every single part of you, but be loving towards yourself when it's hard to be loving towards yourself, so that you can also do that with other people. And ultimately, if we don't do that, we can't get over the hump, and so we're not in the age of spiritual transformation. There's a lot of spiritual delusion that has been happening when Saturn, the planet, has been in Pisces the past few years. Like, one of the negative iterations of that is kind of getting lost in the source, not knowing where to go, being confused, swimming under those waters that are beautiful and dreamy and liminal, and we want to get spiritual and all those things, putting us in touch with it. But now we're ready for the next phase where, okay, now I kind of am connected to my desire and I know I want more, but oh gosh, now it's kind of over to me, where everyone has their sort of equivalent of the hero's journey, when the hero goes into the forest alone, or when the hero goes on a solo mission because he's been kicked out by his whole tribe for feeling like he has this weird gift or whatever it is. It's that moment where we're left alone in the arc of the story. It's never that we just sit around and everyone encourages us to do it and then poof, one day it happens. Like, that's not how we like to watch films, right? It's always that there's a level of bravery that gets embraced, and actually only by encountering the dark side of the human, or the dark side as illustrated by, some force outside of the human, it's always the same thing. And so unless we confront the darkness, and not because we think that we're bad, and not because we hope to beat ourselves up because of it, or because we hope to stay there and turn it into an excuse or a victim story, but because we can say, actually, in real time, I can call the reason why I had that motive was actually for that person to notice me. Or like, how funny that something small, like how funny that I went to literally sit in that chair because I thought that that would mean that I would be near a famous person that I'm now making a noise about and hoping that they see me. And what for? Like even small things like that, which is kind of in the field. It's everywhere unless you take charge of the field and not let the field dictate you. So what I'm really getting at is that what really changes people is the courage to do this, because that's the only force that can help you overcome and detach from the conditioning. And moreover, the more you slay your own darkness, the better the conditioning field is as well, because the conditioning field, which is also, what the universe is using as a hologram to send you things to challenge you and make you grow in your movie, you don't necessarily need that dense of a conditioning if you've already overcome that dense conditioning. It's only being sent to you on the outside so that you can hopefully notice where you're participating in that yourself, or it's reinforcing a belief about you, or it's reinforcing a negative pattern. So that's also why when you clean up your perception of the collective conditioning field or the collective consciousness field, you aren't upholding it for everybody else who's also participating in that field. And so that's how you take the charge or the negative energy out of the collective consciousness field, and it just gets to be this beautiful place where we're all in communion and sharing ideas in terms of the psychic field and the different findings that different people are having. And that's why, people are talking about the telepathy tapes. That's just like rung number one of what's going to come next, of how connected to each other, but also to these invisible layers of life that are here already, but we just don't see them because we are so being ramrodded with the one that is easiest to see. But it's also our fault because we just keep on asking for more ramrodding, because we don't believe that there's more out there. We believe that maybe the devotion to tapping into more out there is boring and it takes us a less time, but mostly because it's a see your shit and like yourself anyway every single day. And I had another friend of mine who's been saying to me, I only realized this recently, she's been saying to me for years, I just need to find like a healer or a guide or someone I really connect with. And she's been looking for years. She's like, there's no one I really resonate with. And we realized recently that the reason why she was looking for that, which is not the same intention for everybody else, because that's a very noble intention on paper, neutrally, is that she has this hesitation because she's so anxious that she can't sit and do a meditation for 20 minutes, or she can't journal, or she can't take 5 seconds to kind of put her hand on her heart and ask herself how she's feeling, because she's in such an opposite state to that she's afraid of that. And my sister was saying to her that that's the thing that changes your life. My sister and I have both been doing To Be Magnetic for 7 or 8 years going on now. And my sister was saying to someone who is really struggling with changing his life, she was like, yeah, the thing is, I've done a lot of work in this field. And they were like, what have you done? She's like, I've probably done TBM 3 times a week minimum for the last 8 years. And he goes, wow, that's a lot of work. So when she's telling me the story, I said, yeah, it is a lot of work, but it's also less work than playing musical chairs with having to go to this course and then having to see this person and then wondering if this is going to save your life, and then it doesn't for a while and you don't get the immediate hit, and so you feel like it's going to always change your life so quickly, and then it doesn't, and you forget that it doesn't, and you don't try another choice altogether, you just try that in a different costume, and then you get the same results, and you're round and round for years. And that was me. That's why I know this, because if you don't have that devotion of how you take all these things that you've learned and all these desires that you have and actually put pen to paper, rubber meet the road, go inside, whatever your thing is, it's going to help you see your shit and like yourself anyway, so that you don't have to be a slave to it unconsciously and blindly, but actually giving yourself back the sovereign choice over it, because you see it now. If you're blind to it, you don't see it, and then you're still being controlled by it, and we all are to certain extents. So it was so impressive to me that when she put it that way, I thought to myself, that's what it is. It's actually much easier. We think it's harder to do something on the regular for years and years, but actually she saved herself so much time, so much angst, so much worry, so much searching, and she's also compounded it over time. So I think the thing is about the deconditioning is you don't need the denser conditioning if you don't need it for your own learning and your own movie. And it also, I'm so curious, I think we've spoken about this, but I sometimes forget, Taylor, if we've had like conversations like in real life or not. But like, I just feel like now I'm not pulling away from consuming as much because I'm trying and like muscling it, but because it is also just not doing it for me the way that it used to. It's not interesting to me. It doesn't have the same like hooks.
There's so many things I need to parse out from what you just said. Um, one of them being, I'll get to that, but one of them being how you're saying that Sophia has committed to it for this long period of time. And I do think that there's like a devotional energy to that. And I think that's something to take for everyone because even with the analogy of the clocks being only able to show up as 10 after 10, that requires repetition in order to decondition that. Like, if you genuinely believe that clocks can only show 10 after 10, I mean this extremely literally, you will only ever see watches in your life that show 10 after 10. I'm not even being metaphorical in that. And so it takes repetition for you to actually go out in the world and say, you know what, today I'm going to let it say 10 after or 12 after 10. And then I'm going to let it say 13 after 10, you know? So there's that aspect of finding things that you want to commit to for a long period of time, even if you're like Jenna, for example, where you're not really meant to be consistent. There are still things in your toolbox that you have used repetitively, consistently over time. You just pull them out. The aspect of being inconsistent is that you pull them out when you need them. You don't make yourself use them every single day. So you still
Yeah.
have like a devotion to the things and the tools that work for you. So find the tools that you want to devote to. That's one thing.
Yeah, and you're right. On that note, I just want to say that ultimately we don't need tools. We just need a tool only helps if it helps you do the thing you need to do. If you can do that on your own, it's not that you need to keep going at something. If, for example, your authority doesn't check it out today, right? It doesn't, your gut doesn't say yes or whatever, but tools are helpful because they actually are like kind of wheels on the back of the bicycle that help make the momentum easier for you in your own mind, in your own relationship to how you understand them, and so on and so forth. So they're neither the better tools or the worst tools, because I know people ask me that a lot, like, what are the best tools to grow? And it's
Exactly.
anything that helps you face your own journey and tend to it like a beautiful garden.
Anything that resonates with you. It
Mm-hmm.
like for some people it is an organized religion. You know, it can be across the whole board of what resonates with you. So
100%.
I'm gonna parse out one other thing and it will lead us back to your original question. So the other thing you're mentioning is this field that you're contributing to with your conditioning. And I don't want to skip over that with the people because that is the reason why you always say that committing to your own deconditioning process is actually how you change the world. Because if you imagine there's 8 billion of us on this planet, we all each have our own conditioned beliefs. Some of them are shared by a large amount of people. And so the ones that are shared by a large amount of people, we hold that belief even stronger. That's like having, you know, out of the 8 billion people, 7 billion of them believe that the clocks can only be 10 after 10,
Mm.
right? So we're actually, as a collective, you call it collectively accepted reality. I don't know if you made that up or if you got that from somewhere,
I made it
but
up.
so we're holding beliefs together in the field as well. So if one person decides to step out of that collectively accepted reality and go, actually, no, I think the time can say other times. That's how we break this like existing field and we actually free not just ourselves, but we free everyone. Like this conditioning is what prevents us from being free because we don't get to wake up and create whatever we want. We wake up and we create what we're conditioned as, you know?
Yeah.
So when you ask me, it's not even that you're having to force yourself to step out of the consuming. I think that just comes with realizing you don't want to contribute to it. You know, you see everyone on the, and sometimes it's fun because you got to read your own energy and it's like, oh, I want to participate in the obsession over like so and so's new album because I'm enjoying that and that's fun and it doesn't feel like there's anything icky to it. I'm not contributing to a mess in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's times when it's fun, but I think when you as yourself have decided, I actually don't want to be a piece and contributing to holding anything that I don't want to exist in place, you just sign out. I don't
Yeah.
even want to watch it happening because me watching it happening is me contributing to holding it as real.
Yeah. And that's not to say, because I know what people are going to ask, and I am going to do an episode about, the negative events in the world at the moment. We're talking in this specific instance, because I'll address that soon. We're talking in this instance about the beliefs that are being reinforced to each other by being in conversation and by the way that we kind of put our stamp on this is true to the world. Participating in collective energy is also, there's nothing wrong with that because in human design you have three layers of energy. There's individual energy, tribal energy, and collective energy, and we do as humans kind of straddle all three. And there's something amazing about collective energy that at its highest version it's absolutely beautiful, just like at its lowest version individual and tribal energy is also not so great. Everything is how you express it depending on the consciousness behind it. So collective energy is very sacred. I'll never forget because I did philosophy in high school, and I wrote my sort of essay on this philosopher and sociologist called Emil Durkheim, and he wrote a book in 1912 or from 1914. I forget what year it was, but he talked about how there's a deep need for human beings to have this differentiation between the sacred and the profane. And the sacred, in contrast to the profane, which is our daily life and our normal, like my routine and whatever, we need to have this place where we feel like we kind of transcend the profane. So he defined it as any kind of practice where a group of people agree on sort of the rules of the rituals, the rites, and how we enter in and what we all do when we're there as this like relief. And so he used to say, religion at the time was the main thing that gave a lot of people a place to calm and pray together, have shared intentions. It's a transcendent moment. In many religions, there's also singing, there's also dancing. It's that touching of, I'm more than just me in my life. When we get together as a group and kind of put our energy into something that is the same, with all these humans energizing the same thing, it feels special. And so it can be now people talking about a great album on the internet. It can also be, and he said this, I think, at the time, it's going to be like football matches and it's going to be concerts. It's where you feel like there's a transcendence. So we're by no means saying that plugging into the collective isn't good and it's not fun. It's more about becoming very nuanced of where are you sort of being part of something that is coming from a place that is trying to sort of homogenize everybody and not let everyone be exposed to as much of what you're reinforcing maybe for yourself that you pass on to people, because everyone who we are connected to does get affected by our patterns and our egos, because our egos and our patterns control our actions, which make them less aligned than if they weren't affected by those patterns. And so everyone is getting a contorted, distorted version of your energetic frequency at them, and then it's on them to deal with your energetic distortion frequency. If you're giving someone something so clean, you're not only saving them a job of having to rejig or maybe misunderstand themselves or not know what was really going on, but you're also making it easier for them, hopefully, to then catch something, like catch a good cold, and then they know what to do with it and it brings out the best in them. So I think that's a really good thing that we bring up, and so full circle that we started this conversation talking about AI, because it's everything to do with our connection online is currently probably the strongest way that we're reinforcing collective conditioning. And so if you see something that is making you feel like, oh gosh, I feel like, of course, these things are so true. Of course, that's just the way the world works. Or, of course, that means that's evidence why I can't be doing life my way. Or, of course, it means I have to overpedal to be part of this, right? Where, you know, when you're like, some things are really easy for you to be part of, right? Like in terms of collective participation. Like you love getting into the story of the artist, and you love, getting behind like a really hilarious, like in joke, for example, that people are creating in such intelligent ways, right? So, assuming it's not coming from any type of conditioning, that's a positive net participation in the collective transcendence. Whereas if it's not organic to you and you feel like you have to keep up, to belong, to be part of who you think is cool, and you're not kind of okay that there's plenty of cool people doing it and plenty of cool people not doing it, and I say cool, I mean in our heads, then if you don't have the organic feeling to participate, you are going to almost like try to beat yourself into participating. And that's probably where an easy line for us to sort of start to pay attention to what the difference is.
I love that distinction. Actually, it made it clearer even for me of when you're participating in the collective. We keep telling people, like we've had this similar conversations around paying attention to how much you're consuming and stuff, but this is like very micro, where when you're participating in the collective, the purpose of that is for opportunities for transcendence, connection, right? So when it feels like transcendence or connection or elevation, you know the difference. Versus when you're participating in collective and you feel it tightening you and shrinking you. And thank you for clarifying that. We're talking about collective conditioning, not necessarily like difficult things happening in the world, because I'm talking about, you can be on the internet and it's something as simple as like all men, the dating stuff where it's like all men are whatever. That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If that's contracting you and shrinking you, for me, it has to do with like motherhood and parenting stuff right now. It's like, oh, being a mother completely changes your life. It's so like drastic. You're not even going to recognize yourself, like all that. That's contraction.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you're actually not participating in the positive expression of collective because you're reinforcing conditioning.
Mm-hmm. And to someone else, that could be expansive and they could love that. So it's not to say there are certain things that are right or wrong. It's just to say that conditioning, because all things are probably true and also not true. And so the what we have to do with the field is not all come to this way that it looks more correct. It's more that it becomes more fractured rather than more kind of centralized and homogenizing to everybody. Like you want to find the content about motherhood that's going to either make you feel expanded and transcendent and give you that tickle and that high, not going to reinforce the things that make you feel like you need to be part of something. And if it doesn't feel good, you want to look at why inside, and you want to be aware of what it's pressing on in you and all that kind of stuff, because it's all there for a reason. But the issue with the conditioning field right now is not that it's wrong. It's just that it's too same. And it's too kind of scaffolded in, and it's too encrustified in because it's been around for such a long time. And what's amazing is we're in a time where we're loosening it, and yet we're still so addicted to the premise of the conditioning field, which is that it's right, that we're trying to loosen it in our way, but then we're also trying to universalize it as if my version of the new conditioning field has to be everyone else's, and I want to pass on what I know to be true. Do you know what I mean? But the point about the conditioning field is it can't have one ruler, and it can't have, us trying to agree with people. We have to be okay with like, I love Bethany Frankel. I literally joined TikTok because I find her fascinating to watch. I find her energy really interesting. I feel like she sniffs things in such different ways than, maybe spiritual people, but she's on the money about some things. Doesn't mean I love everything she does. Doesn't mean I want to be the kind of person that she is. And I can watch her and I can see everyone making these cottage cheese turkey things that she's making and be so delighted by the fact that everyone's talking about cottage cheese being sold out everywhere. And not 1 ounce of me needs to think that if I'm delighted by it, I need to do the same thing. I can just love it from afar. And so that's what I mean by the loosening of the conditioning field, is like you just end up getting to enjoy things for what they are, or just be like, yeah, don't resonate with that. It's either pleasant or it's neutral, and there's nothing else in between. That's, I think, where we want to get to.
Right. And because also some people's poison is other people's medicine. And so we can't, like you said, expect if you're participating in something and it feels like poison to you, that doesn't mean that that thing is wrong. That is medicine for somebody else. It has to, our conditioning or our, collectively accepted truths have to be almost like a mosaic
Mm,
so that there's something for everyone because even you like an individual something could be poison for you right now but then you go through an experience and then you reflect back on that thing and it actually becomes your medicine. So we
yeah,
can't get rid of everything.
no.
We just have to, it's almost like we clean up the water by only participating in things that are not our like trying to opt out of things that are conditioning so that the like we take the mud out of that water so that the people who that's not their conditioning, it's their elevation, can actually get more from that.
Mm,
Like we equally need, people who want to expose how difficult pregnancy and becoming a mother is, but we also need people who want to expose how beautiful the experience of becoming a mother is and how amazing the transformation and the changes are outside of it.
mm.
Both of those things have to exist. We can't get rid of one.
Yeah, because they're both two truths. And our world is less rich if there's one that dominates. And I love what you said about how everyone needs to kind of filter it through their own thing. And also to go back to the sort of what I was saying to you earlier is that everyone reads energy, but it's in two levels. One is our like pure energy read, which is great. And then the other one is our filter. At the same time, if there's a lot of people who are cleared of their own stuff, who are also sussing something out and feeling like it doesn't feel aligned, that's not also because of your conditioning, right? Like if there's a mass sort of huh, don't know. That's how, revolutions and evolutions get created. And thank God we're so connected, because now instead of getting a negative feeling about something and keeping it to yourself in silence and all of us being in silos, on the other hand, how we create change is, especially if we're more free of our stuff, we can all be clearer, like channels for what we think we don't want to have in our paradigm anymore. So in short, deconditioning is worth it on every single front that matters to us as human beings: collective change, personal growth, having the dreams that we want, feelings of transcendence, love for other people, being in alignment, overcoming yourself. And I think I've mentioned this before, but actually the How to Grow series is my favorite part of the app, because it's really the distilled down things that, if you hear spiritual truth, and if any modality is good, spiritual kind of teaching modality, not a self-knowledge modality like astrology or human design, because they do slightly different things. They sort of help you see your own architecture and what's unique about you, whereas I think these broader general spiritual things are sort of about the journey that everyone goes through no matter how different we are. The How to Grow series is really just distilling down what every spiritual truth is saying, no matter where it's being said. If it's worth its salt, they're coming back to the same things over and over. And so that really, really is such a help. And as many times as I think I need to do, um, the solve for every problem is always the same, like accepting your humanness, saying the ugly thing about yourself, understanding how you've created it, not blaming other people, slaying your ego with kindness and compassion, following through with your actions on the things that are really important to you, taking chances on the things that currently don't seem like they're gonna your brain tells you there's so many risks, but you're brave enough and you do it anyway. And being open to being wrong or being pivoted as you go, and seeing challenges as opportunities. These are not very special things, but it's not so much about how many times we read them said in different ways. It's about how many times we actually know when we're going through something in life that those are the things to actually uh, attend to, take action. The answer is one of those things. I'm sure I've left a couple out, but you know that that's the menu and you just choose one and you kind of can't get it wrong. And yeah, you leave the field so much cleaner and clearer for everybody else. And that's the world that we want to create.